Pittsburgh. Welcome to TribLive's From the Newsroom, our podcast bringing you top stories from TribLive.com. In Westmoreland County, Commissioner Ted Kopas called for the resignation or removal by impeachment of the three-time elected Register of Wills, Sherry Magretti Hamilton. Last week, on May 7th, Hamilton was found in contempt of court for official misconduct as an officer of the court, misbehavior in the presence of the court, and obstructing the administration of justice. TribLive's Westmoreland Government and Politics reporter, Rich Cholodofsky, is here to explain what led to this call for removal and the consequences Hamilton could face. Rich, hello.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So, let's break into this story a little bit. I want you to tell me first, who is Sherry? Who is Sherry Hamilton?
Sherry Magretti Hamilton is the Westmoreland County's Register of Wills and Clerk of Orphans Court. She was elected for the first time in 2000 and I believe 16. She had worked 2 years prior to that as the deputy in the office under former Register of Wills Michael Ginsburg. She's a former Hempfield supervisor, and she's politically active with the Republican Party in Westmoreland County. Her third term began in January.
Okay, so her position is the Register of Wills. Can you explain a little bit about what that job entails?
The Register of Wills is an office in the courthouse in Westmoreland County. It's the office where adoptions are filed, processed, guardianships, wills and estates are filed and administered. It's also the office where people come in and get your marriage license.
Okay, thank you. So with this position, we know that recently there has been some issues. Can you explain what happened on Wednesday, May 8th?
Westmoreland Commissioner Ted Kopas, a Democrat, called for Sherry Magretti Hamilton to be removed from office either through an impeachment process or removal by the governor, or he called on her to resign.
Is there a reason why he called for her to resign? What caused something like this to happen?
Well, a week earlier, two Westmoreland County judges found Hamilton in contempt of court for violating court orders that required her to meet certain statutory requirements and deadlines to get documents filed on time. Her office had been consistently delinquent in getting documents filed, meeting deadlines, and generally getting the work of the office completed.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the specifics of this hearing and the contempt?
The contempt of court proceedings against the Register of Wills really started back in November of 2022 when there were some complaints lodged against her by local attorneys who were upset really that they weren't getting completed adoption certificates released to new parents. This kind of mushroomed over the next couple of months and resulted in an administrative order that was issued against the Register of Wills, requiring her to meet certain deadlines to get that work done. Really, another year went by, and the situation never cleared up, according to testimony in some of these court hearings. A second hearing was held back in January, in which it became pretty obvious to the parties, to the judges, that the situation had not been resolved, and it resulted in a second court order in January of 2024 that again set out specific deadlines and requirements for the office to meet. The judges determined through testimony from office staff, from lawyers, during 2 days of testimony earlier this year, that, again, the office had not met the deadlines, had not met requirements. There were still backlogs and getting cases filed and processed. The judges ruled that Sherry Hamilton was in contempt of court for violating the court order.
Thank you. How does something like this happen? Were there issues within the office? What did Hamilton have to say in her response?
Now, Hamilton hasn't said much. She testified at two court hearings this year in which she claimed that the backlogs were getting better. And before that, she claimed that they were caused by COVID pandemic and staff shortages that she blamed on the pandemic, and also she blamed on low salaries that are paid to employees in the office and difficulty in hiring.
Okay. I noticed while I was reading through your articles that she said that she worked with her staff in the courthouse about 30 hours a week, and her deputy had something different to say?
Well, as an elected official, she's actually not required to be in the office at all. There's no requirement for an elected official to show up at work. The office at the courthouse is open to the public about 6.5 hours a day, from 8:30 to 4 p.m. Her staff is there during that time. She was accused of not being there very much during her tenure, going back years, actually. She claimed that she worked as much as 30 hours a week, other than a stint where she was out because of an injury for a few months. Her staff testified in court that that wasn't correct. Her staff insisted that she was at work about 9 hours a week, maybe a few hours more here or there, on a part-time basis, which is something far different than the register testified to the judges.
Interesting. Following that, I know that there was a perjury investigation that had come out as a result of parts of the court hearings, and there are no charges, but the investigation is still ongoing, correct?
Sources told us that perjury charges were referred to the district attorney's office to look into allegations that Register Hamilton had perjured herself when she testified. The district attorney's office subsequently confirmed that they were asked to investigate. They claim they did investigate, but that they have not filed charges at this time, and it doesn't appear like they plan to.
Okay. With all of these issues and this call for resignation, what are some of the consequences that Hamilton is now facing?
Well, the biggest consequence is she could be removed from office. That's to be determined by the state legislature. The state Senate, the state House can take action to begin impeachment proceedings. The state Senate can take action to either affirm or to vote to impeach based on the recommendation from the House, or the Senate can take it up on its own, take a vote, 2/3 vote to recommend to the governor to have her removed from office. There's also an open question as to whether or not the judges the Westmoreland County Common Pleas Court judges can remove Hamilton from office. That has not been researched, and we don't know if that'll happen. It seems to be an open question at this point.
Okay. One of the most glaring and seemingly doable consequences that I've seen was the option of temporary replacing with a conservator.
Well, the courts have done that. The courts have appointed a conservator to basically serve as the unelected Register of Wills. This is a Greensburg attorney who will be paid $170 an hour. It's really kind of an open-ended question as to how many hours he's going to work, how long he's going to be needed. But he will have full and complete authority over that office, according to the judge's court order that was issued earlier this week.
Can you tell me, have you experienced a change like this in the Westmoreland County Courthouse in your coverage before?
I've never seen anything like this before, and very few have. We've certainly have had incidents where we've had officials that have resigned, left office for various reasons. I've never seen a situation where we've had an elected officer in that role and essentially replaced while still earning a paycheck. Hamilton, as of today, is still slated to receive an annual salary of almost $90,000. And she's essentially classified as just a regular office employee at this point, working under the conservator.
Interesting. Interesting that you brought up the salary, because in some of your most recent coverage, we see that Hamilton's salary is potentially on the table for the possible ways to pay this conservator.
The commissioners, Westmoreland County commissioners, have floated the idea of imposing a surcharge on her salary. Back about 4 years ago, the commissioners approved a policy that made elected officials liable, personally liable, for any kind of legal actions that were filed against their office. This came about as a result of a series of lawsuits that were filed against the county sheriff and the county recorder of deeds over some employment issues that kind of plagued the office at the time. The commissioners had threatened to essentially charge those office holders, either through their salary or through their office budgets, with covering the cost of those settlements. That policy has never been enacted. The commissioners have never actually used that policy, but it's one of the things that they floated this week as a way to recoup some of the costs that are involved with paying for this conservator.
Another question that comes to mind, just in your time covering in Westmoreland County, do you think that this change to a conservator will cause more of a backlog or more of a slow transition to fix these issues?
Well, the idea is it'll speed up the transition to fix these issues. That's certainly the plan from the judges, according to their order. The conservator's primary responsibility is to clean things up and to turn things around. Now, Hamilton this week has reported that she has nearly eliminated the backlog. That's her statement. There's been no verification of that other than what she said. Whether or not that's in a report that she sends to the judges will remain to be seen. But she contends that the backlogs have mostly been corrected at this point.
Okay. In the event that her statement is correct and they can verify that, do you think there is a world where she holds on to this position?
The problem is that nobody seems to be sure exactly how they can remove her from office. Whether or not removing her from office is actually something that can be accomplished. There are a lot of moving parts to do that. It requires state government, the governor, the Senate, the state house, judicial action. I think everybody would prefer that the situation is resolved and the office functions as it's designed to function.
One more point that I noted throughout the developing story from last week on, I noticed that Hamilton made the decision to fire the office-appointed lawyer.
She did. Each elected office in Westmoreland County, and really probably any elected office anywhere in the state, they have a solicitor that is hired to represent the office. Hamilton has had the same solicitor in place since she first took office, and even before she took office. This gentleman, attorney Michael Nestico, had been the office solicitor going back to 2012. Late last week on Friday, Hamilton fired Nestico and hired another attorney, a guy out of Carnegie named Sean Logue, to be the office solicitor. Logue is somebody who primarily has been a criminal defense lawyer. He's also the Republican Party chairman in Washington County, and he is somebody who has represented some row offices in Washington County.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask, is there any other updates that you have for us on this story as it's still developing?
Well, it's still developing, and it's very much a question as to whether or not Hamilton will continue to stay in the office. She has continually refused to answer whether or not she planned to resign, what her future plans were. Just this week, another county commissioner, Republican Sean Curtis, also called on her to resign. Curtis had some pretty strong words. At one point, he called the situation absurd, and he stopped short, however, of calling for the state lawmakers to intervene. He said it was up to them. Commissioner Doug Chu, the third county commissioner on the board, he's also a Republican. He did not call for Hamilton to resign.
Well, Rich, thank you for helping us and our listeners understand the complicated moving parts of a story like this.
Thanks, Zach.
For these and more stories, visit TribLive.com. Once again, I'm Zach Gibson, and this is From the Newsroom.